Listen to me, don't be afraid of change. I know it shakes you. I know it rattles the familiar cages you've lived in for years. I know it stretches you in places you didn't want to be stretched, breaks you in places you thought were strong, and challenges everything you thought you understood about yourself, about your future, about God. But what you don't realize is that change is not your enemy. Change is the tool in the hand of a mighty God, crafting something in you that stability never could. See, we pray for growth, but we resist the process. We cry out, God, take me higher. But when the winds start to blow and the ground starts shifting, we scream, Lord, what's happening? You can't go to another level and expect everything to stay the same. You can't grow and stay comfortable. God never called you to comfort. He called you to purpose. And sometimes to get you there, He has to shake the very foundation you've been leaning on. You think you're losing something, but God says, no, baby. You're being released from what was never meant to hold you. That job you lost, that friendship that faded, that environment that shifted, that wasn't punishment. That was providence. God is removing the scaffolding because the building is strong enough to stand on its own now. You've been leaning on things that were never meant to sustain you, and God in His divine wisdom is pulling them away so you can see what He's really built in you. Don't you know that sometimes God has to close doors that you would never close yourself? Because He knows if you stay there, you'll shrink to fit the space. You'll suffocate in something that used to serve you. He loves you too much to let you settle. And so the shaking comes, the shift happens, the tears fall, the confusion sets in. But right in the middle of the chaos, God is still God. He is not intimidated by your questions. He is not confused by your fear. He is not overwhelmed by your panic. He is sovereign. I came to tell somebody you're not in a breakdown. You're in a breakthrough. You're not in a season of loss. You're in a season of preparation. You're not being buried. You're being planted. There is resurrection power moving in your life, and the old must die before the new can rise. You want new wine, but God can't pour it into old wineskins. You want fresh vision, but you're still clinging to expired memories. God says, let it go. Let the old thing die. Let the season change. Because what I'm doing next in you, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard. You thought you needed their approval. You thought you had to have that relationship. You thought the plan you made in your journal 5 years ago was going to be it. But God said, I've got something better. He's rerouting you. He's redirecting you. He's shifting your position so that your purpose can align with His plan. And every detour, every disappointment, every delay, it was part of the design. You can't cling to what was and still reach for what will be. You've got to release the fear, because fear will trap you in Egypt when God is trying to lead you to the promised land. Fear will have you building houses in dry places, worshiping in wastelands, stuck in yesterday's grace when today's anointing is waiting for you. Don't you understand that God is not just in your past? He is in your future, calling you forward. Yes, change is uncomfortable, but so is staying stuck. So is missing your destiny. So is living beneath your anointing. It's time to shift. It's time to move. It's time to surrender. The same God who saw you through the storm is the same God who's guiding you through the shift. He doesn't waste pain. He doesn't waste pressure. He doesn't waste change. He is at work, molding, shaping, refining, and preparing you for what's next. I dare you to stop resisting. I dare you to stop complaining. I dare you to lift your hands and say, God, I trust you in the transition. That's where the oil flows. That's where the power shows up. That's where you step into who you really are. Because when God is at work in your life, every change, every shake, every shift becomes a setup for your glory story. Change is never easy. It pulls us out of the spaces we've grown familiar with and pushes us into territory that feels uncertain, uncomfortable, and at times downright terrifying. But what we often miss in the discomfort of change is that God is not absent in the process. He's right there in the middle of it. Change is not random. It's not chaos. It's not coincidence. Change is God's divine tool, crafted by His own hand, to bring about the growth we prayed for, but didn't know would come in such a stretching, pressing, uncomfortable form. You see, we want transformation without transition. We want elevation without interruption. We want to be promoted, but we don't want to be processed. Yet the kingdom doesn't work like that. The very thing you're fighting this season of change, this upheaval, this moment of confusion, is the very thing God is using to grow you. Growth doesn't come when everything is stable. Growth doesn't happen when life is predictable. Growth is born in tension. It's formed in the friction between who you were and who God is calling you to become. You prayed for strength, and God brought you into a season that required it. You asked for wisdom, and He allowed you to walk through situations that exposed your lack of it. You said, "Lord, make me more like you." And He began peeling away layers of pride, comfort, and control. Because the reality is, if you want to grow in grace, you have to be willing to let go of what you've outgrown, even if it once served you well. There are people, patterns, mindsets, and environments that once helped you but are now hindering you. And God in His mercy will disturb your comfort to develop your calling. That shaking you feel, that stirring in your soul, that discomfort that won't go away, that's not the enemy. It's the evidence that God is working. He's breaking up the ground so that new roots can take hold. He's removing what was shallow so He can build something deep. The surface life, the one where everything looks good but there's no real fruit, that season is over. God is not interested in surface blessings. He's after lasting change, eternal impact, and authentic transformation. And that means He's going to prune you. And pruning always involves loss, but never without purpose. Don't mistake the pruning for punishment. Don't confuse the stretching for suffering. This is God's process. This is how He works. Just like the potter presses the clay, shaping it through pressure, so too does God shape us through change. He spins the wheel of your life, and just when you think things are settled, He adds more water, applies more pressure, and begins forming you again. Because He sees the cracks you can't. He sees the future you haven't imagined. He sees the strength He's trying to bring out of you. And He refuses to let you stay as you are when He knows what He created you to be. Sometimes the very thing you think is breaking you is the thing that's building you. Sometimes the tears you cry are watering the seeds of your next harvest. Sometimes the doors that close are the doors that were keeping you from what was truly yours. You've got to stop seeing change as the enemy and start recognizing it as the hand of God. He's not just shifting things around you. He's shifting something in you. He's changing the way you think, the way you respond, the way you pray, the way you trust. He's deepening your roots so you can carry the weight of the calling on your life. Don't fight what God is using to grow you. Don't resist what He's using to refine you. Sometimes the blessing comes wrapped in frustration. Sometimes the miracle comes hidden in the mess. You're looking for signs, but God is looking for surrender. You're asking for clarity, but He's asking for trust. You're praying for comfort, but He's leading you through the fire, because the fire is where the dross is burned off, where the impurities are removed, where the real gold comes forth. You can't have pure faith without the heat. You can't have real growth without the tension. So when the job changes, and the people walk away, and the plans fall through, and the doors slam shut, pause and remember, God is not punishing you. He's positioning you. He's reordering your steps. He's aligning you with something higher than your expectation. What you see as interruption, He sees as instruction. What you think is a setback, He knows is a setup. Because when God gets ready to do a new thing, He rarely gives advance notice. He just starts moving. And often we don't recognize the move of God because it doesn't look like what we expected. But growth rarely does. It doesn't look like winning at first. It doesn't feel like success. It feels like breaking. It feels like releasing. It feels like discomfort. It feels like loss, because growth cost you. It cost you familiarity. It cost you routine. It cost you predictability. But it gives you perspective. It gives you maturity. It gives you strength. It gives you alignment with heaven's purpose. And that, my friend, is worth every tear, every trial, every test. God is not wasting your season of change. He's not randomly shifting your life like a puzzle with no picture. He knows what he's doing. He is a master architect. And while you're crying over broken bricks, he's building a temple that you haven't yet seen. While you're mourning what you thought you needed, he's replacing it with what you never imagined. While you're stuck asking why, he's already working on the what's next. You have to trust that the same God who ordered your beginning is sovereign over your becoming. The same God who called you out is the same God who will walk you through. He didn't bring you this far to abandon you. He didn't stir up the winds just to let you sink. This isn't the end of you. It's the making of you. This isn't a breakdown. It's the very beginning of the breakthrough. Because what God does in seasons of change is not just external. And once he changes you, everything around you has to follow. The storm may rage, but the roots are deep. The winds may blow, but the foundation is sure. The surroundings may shift, but the God who started this work in you is faithful to complete it. So many times in life, we find ourselves grieving over what we lost, mourning over what slipped through our fingers, asking God why things had to change, why people had to leave, why doors had to close. We look at the empty spaces left behind and think something's gone wrong, like God made a mistake, like the enemy snuck in and stole something valuable while God wasn't looking. But what we don't always realize is that loss is not always punishment. In the hands of God, loss can be divine release. It can be his way of clearing the path, cutting the ties, and breaking the chains to free you from what was only ever meant to be temporary. We hold on too long. We cling too tightly. We attach our peace, our identity, our purpose to things, people, and situations that were never supposed to last forever. Sometimes God has to step in and remove what you won't let go of. Not to hurt you, but to help you. You thought that relationship was it. You thought that job was your dream. You thought that season was going to carry you all the way through. But God saw what you couldn't. He saw the limitation. He saw the compromise. He saw how small it was compared to what he had planned. So in his mercy, he ended what you would have extended. He closed the door you would have forced open. He silenced the voice you would have kept listening to. Not to punish you, but to position you. Because not everything that feels like love is love. Not every opportunity is from God. Not every blessing is meant to last. There are things that look good but are not God. There are people who seem loyal but are only seasonal. There are places that feel safe but are actually keeping you stuck. And if God didn't intervene, you'd stay. You'd settle. You'd shrink. So the blessing ends. The support stops. The relationship shifts. And you're left asking God what happened. But he didn't leave you. He didn't forget you. He rescued you. Sometimes what leaves your life is not your loss. It's your liberation. You were too entangled to see the truth. You were too invested to walk away on your own. So God allowed a disruption. He allowed the discomfort. He allowed the distance. And though it broke your heart, it saved your soul. Though it shattered your expectations, it secured your destiny. Because God knows what he put in you. He knows the oil on your life. He knows the weight of your assignment, and he refuses to let you live beneath it, just to hold on to someone or something that doesn't match it. We spend so much time trying to make things work that were never meant to work. We negotiate with dysfunction. We plead for what's no longer producing. We chase after what God has already released. But you can't resurrect what God has already buried. You can't build a future with people who are stuck in your past. You can't move into purpose while dragging dead weight from expired seasons. Letting go is not weakness. It's wisdom. It takes courage to release what you once depended on. It takes faith to believe that if God allowed it to leave, he's got something better ahead. Sometimes it's not about what was wrong. It's about what wasn't right for where you're going. That job wasn't bad, but it was a ceiling. That friendship wasn't toxic, but it was stagnant. That opportunity wasn't evil, but it was limited. And God is not in the business of letting you live in limitation. So he disrupts, he removes, he reroutes. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it confuses you. Yes, it makes you feel alone. But what you think is rejection is really redirection. What you interpret as abandonment is divine alignment. You've got to trust that God sees further than you. His vision stretches beyond your current pain. He knows the plans he has for you, and those plans are too great to let you stay connected to something or someone that doesn't push you toward purpose. That's why he ends things abruptly sometimes. That's why people walk away without explanation. That's why doors close that you thought were wide open. Because God doesn't need your permission to protect you. He doesn't wait for your understanding to bring about your deliverance. He just moves. And when he moves, it may not make sense. It may not feel fair. It may not be what you would have chosen. But it will always be what's best for your soul. You see, God isn't just preparing a blessing for you. He's preparing you for the blessing. And that preparation often includes removal. You can't carry old habits into a new harvest. You can't take old wounds into a new relationship. You can't bring yesterday's mindset into tomorrow's miracle. So God releases you from people, from places, from patterns. Not because he's cruel, but because he's committed to your growth, committed to your future, committed to your destiny. And when you learn to trust him in the letting go, you begin to see the beauty in the breaking. You start to realize that what left wasn't the source. It was just a resource. God was always the source. The job was a channel. The relationship was a vessel. The platform was a tool. But God was the provider all along. And when one resource dries up, he's already got another one waiting. When one door closes, he's already opened one you haven't even seen yet. When one chapter ends, he's already written the next. But you won't experience it if you keep clinging to what was. Grieve it, yes. Mourn it, absolutely. But don't idolize what God removed. Don't spend your future trying to resurrect your past. Let it go. Release it. Lay it down. Because what's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you. What God is doing next is bigger than what you lost. He's not taking from you. He's freeing you. Freeing you from cycles. Freeing you from codependency. Freeing you from insecurity. Freeing you from false identities. Because what he's building in you can't be supported by the old structure. And when you finally let go, when you open your hands and surrender the loss, God fills them with something better, something fuller, something deeper, something stronger. He gives you beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, a garment of praise for a spirit of heaviness. Because he is not just a taker. He is a restorer. He is not just a God of removal. He is a God of renewal. But the renewal can't come until the release happens. The new can't be poured out while you're still clutching the old. So stop asking why they left. Stop wondering why it ended. Stop doubting your worth. Because of who walked away. What left you wasn't meant to last. What you lost was never meant to keep you. And what God has for you is so much greater than anything you had to give up to get there. You are not forsaken. You are not forgotten. You are being repositioned for something beyond your imagination. And the sooner you release what God has already let go, the sooner you can receive what he's already prepared. Fear is a powerful thing. It has a voice. It whispers to you in the dark moments, in the stillness, in the silence. It tells you to stay where it's safe. It convinces you that what you have is all you'll ever get. It magnifies your past and minimizes your future. Fear will lie to you. It will look like wisdom. It will dress itself up like caution, like discernment, like timing. But really it's just delay. It's hesitation. It's a wall standing between you and the next level God has already prepared for you. Fear will block your destiny if you let it. Fear will chain you to places you've already outgrown. It will hold you captive in a season God has called you out of. Fear is not of God. It never has been. God does not lead with fear. He leads with faith. He calls you to trust him, even when you don't understand him. He calls you to walk when you can't see the full path. He calls you to move when it doesn't make sense. But fear wants a guarantee. Fear wants all the detail. Fear wants certainty before obedience. And the problem with that is that faith never works that way. Faith says move, and then reveals why. Faith says step, and then shows the ground. If you wait for fear to let you go, you'll be waiting forever. You have to decide that your faith is stronger than your fear. You have to decide that what God has spoken is more real than what fear is shouting. Fear doesn't just show up in your mind, it shows up in your decisions. It shapes how you love, how you trust, how you pursue your purpose. Fear will make you shrink. When God says stretch, it will make you settle. When God says soar, it will tell you that you're not qualified, not ready, not enough. And if you listen to it long enough, you'll start believing it. But let me tell you this, the presence of fear does not mean the absence of faith. It just means your faith has to speak louder. It means you have to push forward in spite of what you feel. Fear will have you building a life inside a cage made of comfort, convenience, and control. It will have you building a house in a wilderness you were only meant to pass through. God never told you to stay there, but fear did. Fear said, at least you know this place. Fear said, you've survived worse. Why risk more? Fear will always play it safe. But purpose isn't safe. Calling isn't safe. Faith isn't safe. It requires risk. It requires movement. It requires you to leave the shore and trust that God won't let you drown in the deep. You remember Peter? He walked on water, not because the conditions were right, but because Jesus said, come. He stepped out of the boat in the middle of the storm, not because the storm stopped, but because his faith overpowered his fear. And as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked. But the moment he focused on the wind, the waves, the uncertainty, he sank. That's what fear does. It distracts. It draws your eyes away from the source. It convinces you to look at what's going wrong instead of who's in control. But Jesus didn't let him drown. Even when he began to sink, the Savior reached out and pulled him back up. You may feel like you're sinking right now. You may be overwhelmed by all the what ifs. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if it doesn't work? But let me flip the script. What if it does? What if God actually meant what he said? What if the thing you're afraid to do is the very thing that unlocks your destiny? What if your biggest fear is standing guard at the entrance to your greatest breakthrough? Don't let fear rob you of what's already yours. Don't let it talk you out of what God has already promised. Fear is not just a feeling. It's a strategy. It's a tactic used to keep you in cycles of procrastination, cycles of insecurity, cycles of doubt. It will keep you rehearsing your trauma, replaying your losses, reliving your failures. Fear is a master storyteller. It knows how to exaggerate the worst and hide the best. It'll tell you that what happened before is going to happen again. It'll say, remember when you tried that and it didn't work. Remember when they walked away. Remember when you believed and got disappointed. But God says, behold, I do a new thing. Not the same thing. Not a recycled thing. A new thing. You can't walk into a new season with an old mindset. You can't carry fear into your future and expect to thrive. At some point you've got to confront it. You've got to say, yes, I'm scared, but I'm going anyway. That's courage. That's faith. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's obedience in the face of it. It's believing that if God brought you to it, he'll bring you through it. It's trusting that his word will not return void, even when everything around you looks like it's falling apart. Fear will always scream the loudest when you're closest to the breakthrough. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't threatening. If you're under pressure, it means you're carrying something powerful. If you're being hit with doubt and anxiety and fear, it means there's something in you the enemy wants to stop. But he can't stop it unless you agree with him.
He can't block it unless you partner with fear instead of faith. You've got to make up your mind that fear doesn't get the final say, that your obedience will be louder than your worry, that your yes to God will overpower your no to yourself. You are more than capable, not because of your strength, but because of His Spirit. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. You are not crazy for believing in something bigger than what you see. God has placed something on your life, something unique, something weighty, something eternal. But you'll never walk in it if you keep letting fear hold the pen. You've got to take the pen back. Let God write the story. Let faith drive the decisions. Let trust push you forward, even when it hurts, even when you're shaking, even when every part of you wants to run back to what's safe. You're not called to safe. You're called to destiny. You're called to impact. You're called to transformation. And that calling will not wait for your fear to go away. It's waiting for your obedience. It's waiting for your agreement. So if you're scared, take the step anyway. If your voice is trembling, speak anyway. If your knees are weak, walk anyway. God doesn't need you to be fearless. He needs you to be willing to trust Him, willing to move, willing to believe that He is who He says He is and that He will do what He said He would do.
Sometimes life doesn't follow the script you wrote. Sometimes the plan you laid out so carefully, with all your steps, timelines, and expectations, gets completely turned upside down. You look around and nothing seems to be going the way you imagined. Doors close. Opportunities disappear. People change. Relationships fall apart. It feels like the very ground beneath your feet is shifting. And in those moments, when you're sitting in the ruins of what you thought would be, the enemy tries to creep in and whisper, "You failed." But hear me. God is not caught off guard. He's not confused. He's not scrambling to fix it. This disruption you're facing is not a detour from your purpose. It's part of the divine design. We serve a God who knows the end from the beginning. That means before the problem ever showed up, He already had a plan. Before the door shut, He already prepared another way in. Before they walked out, He already arranged who would walk in next. You see what's happening now, but God sees what's coming. You see the pain, the inconvenience, the setback. But God sees the process. And if you could see it from His perspective, you'd realize that the things you're calling setbacks are actually setups. The pain isn't pointless. The detour isn't wasted. The delay is divine. We like things to be linear. We want to go from point A to point B in a straight, predictable, controlled line. But God rarely works that way. He leads through wildernesses. He guides through storms. He directs through dry places. Why? Because it's in the detours that we are developed. It's in the disappointments that we are deepened. It's in the delays that we are strengthened. God is more interested in who you become than how fast you get there. So while you're praying, "Lord, get me to the promise," He's saying, "Let me prepare you for the weight of the promise." You don't grow on the mountaintop. You grow in the valley. You don't get stronger in comfort. You get stronger in conflict. And those detours, those long, winding roads you never would have chosen, are often the very places where God reveals Himself most clearly. Think about Joseph. God gave him a dream, but before he saw that dream come to life, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and locked in prison. If you looked at any of those moments in isolation, you'd think the dream was dead. But each disruption was really a direction. Each delay was pushing him closer to destiny. What looked like a detour was actually a divine highway. Don't you know that sometimes God will let the plan fall apart to show you He's the one who holds it all together? He will let the thing you idolized break down so you can see that He is your source. Not the plan, not the people, not the position. You thought you needed everything to go according to schedule. But God said, "I'll interrupt your schedule so I can release my glory." He doesn't always give you a blueprint, but he will give you a word. And when he gives you a word, you've got to hold on to it even when everything else is shifting. That word is your anchor. Sometimes God allows closed doors because he knows what's behind them. He sees the trap. He sees the compromise. He sees the weight you're not meant to carry. So while you're crying over the job that didn't call back, God is protecting you from an environment that would have poisoned your spirit. While you're mourning the relationship that ended, God is cutting ties with someone who couldn't handle your anointing. While you're frustrated about where you are, God is developing something in you that you're going to need for where you're going. If he rushed the process, you'd miss the preparation. Divine disruptions will strip you of control. They'll leave you feeling confused and exposed. But that's exactly where God does his best work, in the places where you finally stop trying to make it happen on your own and start relying on him completely. He didn't bring you this far to leave you. And even when you feel lost, heaven has even when your plan is crumbling, God's purpose is still standing. Because his word doesn't change. His promises don't expire. What he started, he is faithful to complete. If you look through the Bible, you'll see this pattern again and again. Abraham was promised a nation, but he was delayed for years before seeing the first sign of it. Moses was called to deliver Israel, but he spent decades on the backside of a mountain before stepping into leadership. David was anointed king, but it took years of running and hiding before he sat on the throne. Delay is not denial. Detour is not disqualification. God is using what looks like an interruption to prepare you for a release. And sometimes the detour is necessary not because of what's ahead, but because of what's still inside of you. God can't take you into the new until he deals with the old. There are some insecurities he's flushing out, some fears he's burning off, some habits he's confronting. Because if you entered your next level too soon, you'd sabotage it with the wounds of your last. So he allows the delay to heal you. He allows the pause to shape you. He allows the reroute to humble you. It's not punishment, it's protection. You may feel stuck, but you're not stranded. You may feel delayed, but you're not denied. You may feel off track, but you are exactly where God knew you'd be. And while you're focused on what's not happening, God is working on what will happen. Heaven is never in a hurry, but it's always on time. And what looks like a setback in the natural is often a setup in the spirit. He's not just trying to take you somewhere. He's trying to make you into someone who can carry the weight, someone who can steward the blessing, someone who can stand strong in the storm. If you only knew what he was protecting you from, if you could see the enemy's attacks that didn't reach you, if you understood the timing he's aligning, you'd stop panicking and start praising. Because God is too wise to be early and too loving to be late. He knows exactly when to open the door. He knows exactly when to shift the season. And until then, he's working in the waiting. He's shaping your character, stretching your faith, and deepening your dependence on him. This is not wasted time. This is not failure. This is not defeat. This is divine strategy. Heaven's plan often looks chaotic on earth. But don't let the mess fool you. God is in the middle of it. The delay, the disappointment, the detour. It's all part of the journey. You may not see it yet, but trust me, when the time is right, it'll all make sense. Because what he promised he will perform. What he started he will finish. And when you look back, you'll see that every interruption was actually an invitation to trust him more. Trusting the transition is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Because transitions are messy. They're unclear. They're in between places where the old has ended, but the new hasn't fully begun. You're not where you were, but you're not yet where you're going. And in that space, in that uncomfortable, uncertain, unfamiliar place, God says, trust me. Not after the promise shows up. Not once everything makes sense. Not when the situation gets better. Now, in the middle of it, in the dark, in the waiting, in the tension. He calls you to trust him when you don't know what's coming next. That's hard because we crave control. We want the full picture. We want a timeline. We want steps, confirmations, and signs. But God doesn't always work like that. He doesn't show you the whole staircase. He just tells you to take the next step. And that next step might feel like a risk. It might feel like you're walking blind. It might feel like you're letting go of everything you've known. But that's what faith is. Faith isn't comfort. It's confidence in God when the path isn't clear. Transitions are never clean. They come with tension. They come with fear. They come with a feeling of vulnerability. Everything is shifting. Your emotions are up and down. One minute you feel ready. The next minute doubt crashes over you like a wave. But even in all that instability, God is stable. Even when you don't feel grounded, He is your foundation. You don't have to understand the transition to trust the one guiding you through it. He knows the way, even when you don't. And sometimes He won't give you the reason, because He's trying to teach you to follow His voice, not your understanding. You prayed for change. You asked for elevation. You asked for breakthrough. But now you're in the hallway, and it's uncomfortable. Doors have closed, but new ones haven't opened yet. You feel suspended, like you're in midair with nothing to hold on to. That's the test. That's the proving ground. Because how you handle the middle determines if you're ready for what's next. If you can praise when the promise hasn't shown up. If you can believe when the blessing is still on the way. If you can remain faithful while it looks like nothing is happening. That's when God knows He can trust you with more. There's something about the transition that strips you of your idols. It removes your dependencies. It shows you what you really believe. It exposes what you've been leaning on. And when everything else is stripped away, you discover that God really is enough. He's enough when the paycheck is uncertain. He's enough when the relationship ends. He's enough when the plan falls through. In the transition, God becomes your source. Not just the one who gives you what you want, but the one who is what you need. We often resist the transition because it doesn't feel safe. But the goal of faith isn't safety. It's surrender. Trusting the transition means letting go of the illusion of control and saying, God, even if I don't see it, I still believe your word. Even if I don't understand it, I know you're good. Even if I don't feel ready, I know you're with me. That's real trust. That's the kind of trust that grows in the dark. That's the kind of trust that flourishes in the unknown. And sometimes God will keep you in the transition longer than you expected. Not to frustrate you, but to form you. Because He's not just trying to change your situation. He's trying to transform you. There are lessons in the hallway. There is oil in the press. There is strength being developed in the stretch. You can't see it yet, but God is refining your character. He's preparing you for something greater than you've imagined. And if He gave it to you too soon, you'd fumble. If He opened the door before you were ready, you wouldn't have the maturity to walk through it and handle the weight of what's on the other side. That's why the transition is necessary. It's the in-between place where God does the deep work. It's where He pulls out old fear. It's where He heals hidden wounds. It's where He recalibrates your heart. Because the next level requires a different version of you, one that's been processed, pruned, and prepared. So don't curse the transition. Don't rush it. Don't despise the waiting. God is not wasting it. Every tear, every prayer, every quiet moment where you felt forgotten. It's all part of what He's building in you. Some of the most powerful moves of God happen in the most confusing transition. Look at Abraham, called to leave everything familiar, with no map and no destination. Just a word from God. Look at Ruth leaving Moab, stepping into an unknown land, trusting that something better was waiting. Look at Jesus 40 days in the wilderness, between baptism and ministry, being tested, being tried, but being made ready. Transitions are holy ground. They're where identity is shaped. They're where destiny is clarified. They're where dependence on God becomes real, raw, and unshakable. Don't let the enemy convince you that because things are uncertain, God is absent. His silence is not abandonment. His delay is not disinterest. He's working behind the scenes. He's aligning people. He's orchestrating timing. He's softening hearts. He's preparing places. And most importantly, He's preparing you. Because when it's time to move, when it's time to step into the new, you won't be stepping in as the same person who started this journey. You'll be wiser. You'll be stronger. You'll be bold. You'll carry a weight of glory you couldn't have handled before. So in the transition, Lean in. Listen for his voice. Remind yourself of what he said. Don't let temporary discomfort talk you out of eternal purpose. Don't let the in-between place make you forget that God finishes what he starts. Trust that he's not just moving you forward. He's elevating you. He's maturing you. He's developing something deep within you that no one can take away. And when the new season comes, because it will come, you'll walk into it with a level of faith, peace, and power that only comes from trusting God in the middle of the mystery. That's what happens when you trust the transition. You become unshakable, not because of what you see, but because of who you trust. So now you've seen it, piece by piece, word by word, God is at work in your life. In every change, every loss, every fear, every delay, and every transition, he's been orchestrating something greater than you imagined. He's been pruning you for purpose, stretching you for strength, maturing your faith, and preparing your hands to hold what he's about to release. It hasn't always made sense. It hasn't always felt fair, but it has always been divine. What looked like breaking was actually building. What felt like rejection was really redirection. And what seemed like the end was only the beginning. So don't be afraid of change. Don't mourn what you lost more than you expect what's coming. Don't let fear take the wheel. Don't curse the detour. And above all, don't stop in the transition. God didn't bring you this far to leave you halfway. You're on the edge of breakthrough. You're being positioned for destiny. The shifting is a sign that his hand is on you. And the shaking is proof that his glory is near. Lift your head. Wipe your tears. Strengthen your stance. You're not just surviving. You're being shaped. You're not just going through. You're growing through. And when God is finished with what he's doing in your life, you won't just see the change. You'll be the change. Because he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it.